Gotta get something to drink. Drinking some wine today. I think today is a wine day. Hey. All right. So today, what's up, everyone? What's up, everyone? Just want to start off, like I always do, saying thank you to all the new people coming onto my page, following Against Entertainment, my actors and the crew and everything we're doing or about to do. And just want to say thanks for coming in. And those that I don't allow everyone in because you can't. Because sometimes you get some crazy things or crazy people trying to get into your page. So be careful out there, guys. You get some crazies out there trying to get into your page and God knows what. That's how people get hacked. So you gotta be careful with that. All right. So today, it's good though. Sweet. So I think it's something I actually had never really spoke about. I think in any of my vlogs here is writing dialogue. Of all things, I don't know if I ever, well, and I never thought, and I thought about it today, and I was like, oh, you know what? I think I never spoke about that. Yeah, writing dialogue. And I come across a lot of movies and stuff that, even independents, that, got these weird dialogue that just don't, I don't know, just don't jive, just doesn't work. Well, here's my take on dialogue. I mean, everyone has their way of speaking or how they want their actors or characters to speak in their movie, because each movie has its own face, obviously, and its own world, and things people need to speak a certain way within a certain world. So, of course, when you write dialogue for whatever you're writing it for, you try for it to fit the world that you're creating, right? So my take on dialogue, of course, is all about taste. But I think the best thing for always to understand, if you do write dialogue, this is my opinion, okay? And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying I'm some type of wordsmith or some type of, legendary writer. I'm not, far from. But, we all know what sounds good and what doesn't. What has a rhythm, what doesn't, and what sound too much on one side than the other and doesn't. My take on dialogue is, like I said before, it has to fit the world that you're in, but more importantly, it has to fit the character that you're writing for. I think the trick with dialogue and the trick with doing really good dialogue on anything is about making sure that whatever dialogue that you're writing for a character is for that character alone. I think a lot of times what I come across and I see a lot, even in big films, is that everyone sounds the same. Like you could almost take that same dialogue and place it on another character in the movie, and it would just sound fine. And that's not right. I think that you cannot write dialogue that you can slip into another character and it would sound just fine. I think the trick to it, the art of it, is writing a dialogue that fits that character, and only that character or that actor can actually say it. And a lot of times it really comes out to the actor, because there are some actors that can say some dialogue that no one else can say. They can deliver it like nobody else can. And you just have to understand how they can say it. You have to be in tune with your actors. You have to be in tune, talking for a director and producer. If you're making a film, you really have to be in tune with not just the character that you're developing, but the actor in which is portraying the character. It's really important, because you can actually, of course, write the dialogue before you get the actor, and that happens all the time. That's a big deal. But you got to be willing and flexible enough to say, okay, this actor has a different delivery that I actually hired, or this person has a different way of enunciating words, or it's just the actor's cadence probably won't fit well with these words. Let me switch it around. So you always have to be open to not only the character, but to the actor. More importantly, the actor. because the actor's going to portray that character probably better than you thought you could, that you wrote. I mean, that's the whole point of it. A lot of times that happens. But when you write dialogue, the trick, like I always say, like, just to repeat myself one more time, is that you have to write it for that character. That dialogue should not be able to fit anybody else in the film. So everybody in the film, every character in the film should have their own way of speaking. They have to use words in their own way that you see fit for them, right? So everyone can sound the same, and that's what makes a great film. That's what makes great character development, and that's what makes people interested in watching everybody hop around the screen, because everyone is a little different and they sound a little different. Like even for mine, I do my best. I'm not saying I did the best at it. I'm not saying that at all. Don't get me wrong. You can look at my films. But I think that if you look at my films and you listen to my characters, I do my best that you can't see that character, what they're saying, on anybody else's mouth. And that's what I try to do. Example, look at my film and you're going to see, say, my character who plays the bad guy, right? Daniel Pellissier, okay? And Daniel has a way of enunciating words. He has a different delivery than everyone does. And his dialogue works well. Like he can deliver it and it sounds beautiful. But if I give those same lines to anybody else in the picture, it just won't sound right because they can't say it the way he can. If I take, my lead too, when I take Daphne Abel Bless's role as Sophia Hayden, and I give her lines to say the Kayla character or the Painted Guard character, it just won't sound the same because I try to write it in a way where her accent works well with the words I'm actually writing for her. It should come out easier for her, and it will come out better with her accent. You see what I mean? So I try my best to tweak it as much as I possibly can. Now, of course, like anything else, it could always be done better. That's not the point. The point is you do your best to say, okay, if I gave that line to somebody else, would it work? And I think that's the best thing. I think the first thing you just have to always understand is don't always try to go out for the knockout punch. Like in every line or every scene, don't go for the home run. Try to be the slick, talking, man, this is going to be some slick, dialogue that everyone is going to have. Don't make it that way. It's almost suicide if you do that. Why? Because say if you did have that talent, right? Say you are good at that, you're a wordsmith. About time 20 minutes comes into your movie, everyone has such great lines, eventually it becomes stale. It doesn't become as brilliant anymore. It doesn't shock, doesn't pop as much. You always have to hold it a little bit, even if you know you have the God-gifted talent to flip those words that way. You want to always save it, if not for a certain character for certain moments, or only for certain characters. Now, for example, if you have a character that's really in the movie, but they're poignant, they have poignant positions within the story, but they're not in much, then I would dump the whole bucket on everything they say. Like everything they say had some meaning. There is a rhythm to it. There is a spark. There's always a punch after everything. There's always something so cool that they're going to say. If they in the whole movie as the lead, like all the time, then you want to make those moments every now and then when it's appropriate, and not just because they have a moment in the movie. How can I say that? Like when it matters, you know what I mean? And then I would say, okay, let me dump some sprinkles on there. Let me dump a little stars on their dialogue, and then that works. I see, in my opinion, I always see a lot of when it comes to action movies, right? That I'm into, sci-fi films, stuff like that. And a lot of times they want the hero, or they want certain moments when the hero does something cool or something courageous. And just before the bad guy dies, they have this last word, and it's so obvious that they just try to be cool. Now, I understand there's an art form to be corny and cool. Like there's an art form to say certain things you know is kind of corny, but it kind of fits. You know what I mean? I mean, you know it is, but it's just placed just right. And not everyone can do it, and it's very rare. I tell you a movie or a writer and actors who have done it for years, but they only do it like once or twice out of every couple of movies. And that's like classics like Arnold Schwarzenegger, James Cameron. And James Cameron is a really good writer. He knows certain lines are corny, they hokey. Like he knows, hasta la vista, baby. Like he knew from that when that came out, it sounded corny, but he put it at the right spot because it made a lot of sense of someone who's to trying to get our language, is a robot trying to be cool. How would a robot sound trying to be cool if the only thing he was told are these particular words on these particular moments you should say? He'll pick one of those and that's it. He won't, it just made sense and it worked. I'll be back. You have these iconic corny lines, but that's the genius behind those lines. Dialogue is so important about where you put it. Like first of all, and two, when you speaking with people, especially, it doesn't matter where you are, like in the world. I mean, unless you're doing Shakespeare, but no matter what world you're in, you have to do your best to make the dialogue seem as if it's more of a reaction, than planned. And of course, a lot of that has to do with the actor, just demonstrating that, just kind of getting that across. I mean, that's their job. But at the same time, you do your best to try to make the dialogue easier for them so they can break it up and make it sound more reactionary. Because when you look at it, almost all dialogue a lot of times should be reactionary. I mean, unless, it's a scene with a teacher telling kids something, or someone's reading something, or someone had a plan, they had a plan, and then they telling the person or the antagonist or the protagonist, whoever it is, the story or whatever. There are moments where it's obvious, but most of the time it should always sound reactionary. There always should be, because none of us talk. Well, you shouldn't. A lot of us don't talk the way we write. So don't write it the way you would write. Write it the way you would speak. All of the imperfections, the ums and the click, the little, the coughs or the sniffles, or all these little things to make it the way we would normally talk. Even if it's somebody who's supposed to be a highly intelligent person, they're not going to really speak as much the way they write. So even if somebody was like supposed to be like, the Don is going to think too. They're going to be very calculated in what they say. So there is going to be a pause. There's going to be a thought in between syllables. You're not going to say the word straight out sometimes. Sometimes you may say, well, this is some type of nonsense, and you should all just die today. Whatever you're going to say, it should sound as if you're thinking it as it's going along, but not as if he wrote it. And then he's at the moment, he's like, I know exactly what to say. I wrote it yesterday. It shouldn't sound like that. And even when I write mine, I have my way of doing things. I go and say, that could probably be better. A lot of times I leave things, like my process is a little different than everybody else. But my process, sometimes I leave things open. Like I may write it and I look at it and go, you know what, it could be a little better. I'm going to let the actor, me and the actor are going to figure that out, because the way they perform it, I'm going to tweak it a little bit there. A lot of times I'll leave things purposely open, meaning that it can be done better. And I know it can be done, but I'll tell them, hey, listen, let's change this up and let's see what we can do with this. Go to the same, as we go into the same route and we go into the same place, we're not losing what we're trying to say. We're just going to say it a little different and go for it. And also, too, what helps is gives the actors some type of ownership, that they can actually hold on to themselves, So it does help everybody in it. And also, too, it would make the actor sound more realistic, because now it's really coming from them, because, they had a little input into maybe that one line or even that scene, things like that. As long as everything is going to where the writer or the director or the producer, whoever wrote this, Long as going to the same direction, you're trying to get the same feel, then that's okay. It works. Once you start going out the field, that's when you have to kind of draw everyone in. Like, well, no, 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 we're not going that direction. Stay on the road. You know what I mean? You may have to jump over a few bricks instead of walk. You may have to jump here and there, but stay on the road. And I think a lot of times too, you want to do that. But I always say the trick of dialogue, and we all know this, right? Is to make it seem that it wasn't written. That's the trick. That's the art. Not everyone can do it. There's people out there who are just gifted that way, but that's the art. Even when you do yours, every dialogue comes from you, right? If you're making it. But it always has to sound as if it wasn't written. And it's not the easiest thing because some things you want written. And then sometimes you have to do that, a matter of fact type of dialogue in between things. Like, no, I have to sometimes because some stories call for it. Let me give you an example. You know what I'm saying? Like sometimes I will write something like in my movie. Like if you watch my episodes, and I got some new ones coming, as I told everyone before in season 2, there are some things the actors say or the characters say that doesn't need to really be said. I just have to, I add it in there purposely, and it made me sound like it's too much. Or sometimes I sound a little corny, but that's okay. Because I want that, because some things need to be explained. You have to do it as a matter of fact type of dialogue. You're just kind of telling the audience this is where it's going. Normally, maybe that character realistically would never say that. Or why would they even bring that up? But you do it for the audience to make sure that they still on track with you. And you just have to throw it out a little bit. And I say you can always do that. And even if the audience knows you're kind of doing that, but as long as you stay on track, people will forgive you because they know what you're doing. They're like, okay, I understand that, because you do have to explain a little bit. That character may not in real life have said that, but this is a movie. I understand we have to go. And that's what you do. I mean, that's what you do. You just have to, people will forgive you because they know what they're watching half the time. They know what they're in for. They know this is a movie. They know you're trying to kind of tell a story. And sometimes you have to kind of add some more into the dialogue that shouldn't be in there, just to kind of keep things on the same path and make sure people are following you where they need to go to. Sometimes it's a little bit, don't do too much. Like, don't sit there and start giving a whole soliloquy about what you're going to do in the movie and why you did it and everything. No, people say, well, I'm watching the movie, bro. I'm going to get it. Just keep going. Go with the story. I'll see where you're going. Don't tell me before you get there. And if you did it already, I already saw this shit. Why are you explaining with some shit I already saw? I understand. Just keep it going. If you have to throw a little, a little sparkle in there, a little reminder, okay, fine. You throw a little bit, but don't do it too much. And I think that's the thing. I think, like I said, you just have to make it sound as if no one wrote it. Now, the big thing too that we all, I guess, kind of not hate, but kind of annoyed at times, is like, okay, action movies. Let me go back to action movies. I just veered off a little bit to the right over here for a minute. But let me go to action movies. I think action movies a lot of times have like the worst dialogue at times, And I think Hollywood at times, they kill us. Independents have a little better at times. But I think too, this is one thing that people have to understand when you do a film like this. If you do an action, right, everyone knows it's already overhyped, right? Everyone knows it's fake. Everyone knows it's just kind of over the top stuff to make it exciting. And we want that, we want to see that. Give it to us. But don't put too much icing on the cake. You just make it too sweet, and you just make it unsettling. Like I said before, let me go back. Especially when, like I said, say a protagonist defeats an antagonist, and just before the antagonist dies or gets defeated or is on the floor and his hands up like, and then the protagonist is like, dun, dun, let me tell you something. You would never do this in my town again. Like, yo, that sounds so bad. Like, why do you do that? We all know what you're doing. Sometimes the best thing to do in those moments, like if you're writing something like that, is less. When you do a fight scene, I know when I see a fight scene or something at the end, and then at the very end of it, the best thing to do is say nothing. That is more impactful. then the protagonist throw in one last line. If the antagonist wants to say a line, all right, fine. But then they have to be careful too. Now, it's easier for the antagonist to say something last than the protagonist, because the antagonist can always say, damn you, or you're nothing. The best thing to do is for the protagonist not to say anything. That's the machismo. That's the gumption. That's the badass. Badasses don't talk. You know the old saying, I don't know how many of you been into fights in real life or whatever, but what they always say, if you're surrounded by a gang, if you're surrounded by a couple of people, right? And there's one guy or one person, it could be a woman, whoever it is, depending who you are, someone's always yapping at you. They're the one yelling at you, and they got you surrounded, all right? And they're about to rob you or something. What they always say, don't worry about the guy who's yapping in front of you. Worry about the guy in the back saying nothing, because more than likely, that's the guy who's going to kill you. That's how you should approach your dialogue when you write. Don't be so much of the person in the front yapping all the time. Make it dialogue to the point where you just say enough that everyone knows where you're going, but not people know what you're trying to say, but not know where you're going. I think that's better for me to say that. You know what I mean? And they know what you want to do, but they're not quite sure where you're going. See, that was the genius part too, like when you saw like Dark Knight, you know, when they wrote, for the Joker. When the Joker came on scene every time, you know, you knew what he was, but you wasn't sure about what he was going to do. He was unpredictable. And then you dialogue in a way you have to make it kind of that way. Like people kind of know the direction, like they know the path they kind of taken, but they don't know what's on that path. They don't know what's going to jump out. And when it comes to dialogue, that's the art of it, is that you just don't know what your characters are going to do and say. And if you can make any of your movies, I don't care what kind of movie it is, if you can do that for most of the film for your characters, then you're going to have your audience intrigued. They're going to stay with you because they know where they know where you're going, but they don't know what's happening. They don't know what's going to come. They don't know what's popping up. And I think in your dialogue, you just want to make it just enough. Everything should be more of a roundabout until everything should be like a funnel. I look at it as the closer you get to the end, the more specific the dialogue and things become. Everything's become clearer as you get to the end. I think the very beginning, everything should be very broad. Like if you even look at mine, I know I have so much left I want to tell in my story. But if you pay attention to even the few episodes I've done, you know, the best I can, then you will see they're broad things. There are characters that you don't know why they're doing what they're doing, but you know what they're doing, but you're not sure exactly why. You hear places you haven't seen. You're hearing about situations that you're not sure ever happened, and then you're seeing people's reacting to other people for some reason that you don't know why yet, but you know the relationship already. So that's how I look at my story when I write. I want to give you enough that you know what the moment's supposed to be, but you don't really know what the play is all about yet. You know what I mean? And you know what too, guys? I just want to let you know, it just popped in. If any of you are writing me, I forgot to say this in the beginning, pardon me, I'm sorry. For some reason, like if anyone, like everybody that came, I can't see anybody. Like it just came in now. Like all this time, my side with everyone's writing things, I can't see. It was blank. Then all of a sudden, boop, it popped up. I think it's some Facebook deal. I don't know. So pardon me if I haven't answered you. It's not like I'm not even looking at what you guys are writing. It just popped up now. So I'm just now going through the few that I have here. You know, how do you usually avoid making characters sound alike when you write? Tremaine Jenkins, how you doing, man? I knew you probably wrote this some time ago as I was just going off my way, my little spiel. To answer your question, if you're still there, Is the easiest way to do it is always make sure that your characters have a backstory. If you have a backstory for your character, then you know how your character speaks. It's no different if you had three characters and one came from a different state. One came from the West, one came from New York, and one came from South Carolina. They're going to talk different. They're going to have a different way of looking through life, and they're going to have a different experience. That alone would give them a different voice. So when you think about your characters, or maybe even if all the characters come from the same city, they don't have the same parents. They're not the same height. They don't say they have the same body girth and nothing like that. So they're going to think and talk a little different. And the way you make your story about who's going to go where and why they're going to go, that alone would give them a different voice. One may sound more apprehensive. One may have more confidence behind their voice. So they'll say things that maybe if someone has more confidence, they'll be a little more egotistical. They would try to use big words that probably they don't need to use because they got too much ego. Then you have someone, maybe the other character, who can be with that character too, but maybe a little more, a little more, how can I say, maybe someone's shy, a little shy than the others. So they're not going to say much. So in that way, what their dialogue is going to be very minimal, right? But they even may, depending how you make it, they could be the genius, or they could maybe even be the dumbest one. But whatever it is, they're going to talk a little different. So it's all about, really, I say the backstory is the quickest way to get their own voice. That's how I will look at it, and that's how I look at mine. So that's why when you look at my movie, if you ever look at my movie, when you go on Amazon Prime and you look at the 3 episodes, really have 4 episodes, but there's we're about 2, 3, and 4 right now. The one was just a beginning, and but if you look at them, they all come from different places, you can tell, and they all have a different purpose. So they're all going to sound a little different, and they're going to say things a little different because their backstory requires them to. So, but even when you do that, right? Okay, so say you have all that all together. Say, okay, you got that down. You got the way everyone's going to speak and all that. Now, my thing is how to make them in certain situations just kind of where it makes sense to not only be there, which is up to you as a writer, but the things they say during those moments make sense that they would say. Like, never let them say anything that they won't say in certain situations. If a situation calls for a certain way, someone had to say something that maybe a character in there normally wouldn't say, is your story, I would make somebody else either come in that is more appropriate to say that, or I would just cut it out. And like I said, a lot of time, especially when it comes to action film, because I'm an action film guy, okay? When it comes to action film, like I said before, a lot of time action film has the worst dialogue half the time, a lot of times. And really the dialogue doesn't come in like just as the movie is going along. It's always at the very end of some moment. And like I said before, the easiest way, if you're not sure how to end a conversation a lot of times, I think the strongest way, if I'm repeating myself, pardon me, but the strongest way is for the other character to say nothing and let it all be inside. Let it all be inside, and that is the strength. I tell you, one movie is a classic to me that the actor did a great job of keeping everything inside, but expressing it so well through these eyes. And just through his facial emotions was incredible. And I have to give Brad Pitt much props, man. When he did Interview with the Vampire, and I read the book, so maybe I'm a little biased because I know how it's supposed to be. But when you look at Interview with the Vampire, he had to say much, but everything was going through him. All the conflict was going through his face. Maybe his delivery wasn't the best at times, his cadence wasn't like on point where we really want to hear it as much. I get it at that time. Yeah, I get it. But his expressions of those close-ups and those moments, you saw exactly what was going through his body. You knew when he was sad. You knew when he was conflicted. And then you knew when he was sure of himself. And he didn't have to say a word. Now, Denzel has done that before, and I forget the movie's name. I think, when he was in the hospital. And I remember when he did that, his biggest thing was he said, I'm not moving. Everything has to come through my face. And that's the hardest thing, and it's challenging. I think that's the best. And like I said, dialogue doesn't have to be, a movie doesn't have to have a lot of dialogue to get your point across. Like, you don't have to have a lot. You really don't, depending on what your movie is. But let me tell you, a lot of times you don't. I look at dialogue as a quick fire. I look at sparks. Get your point across. Remember, always understand this. A movie is just the cliff notes of a much larger story. That is it. If you write thinking that, if you create your film with that thought process, the way I do, you would get your story across much quicker, much stronger, and much more effective. Because then you will alleviate a lot of fat, a lot of things, a lot of dialogue that you don't need, that you can actually demonstrate through action, which is what the audience would want to see more of. People want to hear, people love good dialogue, don't get me wrong. But like anything else, too much of something becomes real boring. So you want to have a nice balance depending upon what film you're doing. Even if it's a drama, no one wants to sit and watch two characters bickle for 20 minutes. They want another shot. They want another scenery. They want someone walking. They want something moving. They want to tell me what you need to tell me, and let's keep going. That's the best way. The best movies are always made that way. And if you look at most of the movies, especially dramas that you really like, look at what they are doing. They are just moving shit along. They got some good dialogue. They tell you what they want to say, and they move next. Here's the scene. Got it? You got it? You good? You got it? Okay, cool. Let's move. That's what makes you want it. That's what makes you say, I want to see what happens now. Because you don't want to, one thing you don't want, and we all been there, right? You be in a movie theater, right? And it's like you get that. Once you start hearing that come out of people's mouth, watching maybe your movie, you may say, shit, too long. Damn. I should have sewed it up a little quicker. Because once you start hearing, oh, damn. Because when you look at a real good film that kind of keeps it going, it doesn't. People just sit there with their eyes wide open, eating. Just eating. But man, once you start hearing that, brother, you're like, oh. Let's see. How do you know when they're written bad dialogue? Sometimes we don't realize bad and we wrote in the way we like it. Hey, Tremaine, to answer your question on the next one here, how do you know, this is Tremaine's question, everybody. He says, how do you know when you've written bad dialogue? Sometimes we don't realize it's bad because we wrote it and it's the way we liked it. Very true. I see what you're getting at. In my opinion, when you write something bad, it's not really bad, man. I think that you're writing for your audience, okay? There are some things that you write that you say, listen, man, I really don't need to say that. Like, we just know. I think that it's really hard to say because you're writing for your audience and your audience would get it, okay? If I'm looking at it, if I'm looking at an action movie, there is some type of dialogue that is going to be cool with me, but someone who always likes to maybe likes period pieces may not get it. They don't understand the twist. If someone like myself, I like both, but anyway, but if someone who is always into action hears a period piece, to them, they may say, oh, whatever, bro. But no, but the audience who's into it understands the nuances within that dialogue. They understand where that came in. There may be hints of prior movies that is referring to, hints in history pertaining to that movie that people who don't normally watch it won't get it. So you just have to worry about what your audience likes, what you like. Like if you're still not sure about that, the best way to do it is this. If you saw that in the theater, if you were sitting down and looking at it and someone said that, and that was said to you on screen, what would you feel like? You know, would you think that would be cool? You know, if someone said it, and if you say, yeah, you know what, I think it would. I think it'd be kind of cool to say that. Then you say it and you write it, and that's it. You drop it. Boom, it's done. Always understand, man. Dialogue too it really pertains to about your audience and what you're writing for. You know, I'm saying this now about this dialogue in general. You know, about, you know, you shouldn't do this. This, my opinion, shouldn't do this. Some things are a little obvious, but really it comes down to your audience. And then it gets more complex. Then it gets a little, if you want to drill down a little more, then you say, okay, now in my audience, this is my world now. I'm making a movie for my world, for my people. Now, for my people, this will be cool. This will be corny. People from other genres and stuff, unless you're trying to cross over, it doesn't really matter. Because you're going for your genre. We get it. Bro, we get it. You know, we want to hear that. Someone else may say it's a little corny. They say, yeah, we know it's corny, but that's what we like. It's cool. I like it. It's cool. Fuck it. It's what we like. So, I mean, that's what I say, you know? So that's my answer to you, Jermaine. I mean, I hope it helps. I mean, I hope I explained well, if it made any sense. But that's how I think. And even when I write dialogue, I mean, like I said, when I write dialogue, I look at it as if I saw this myself. And check this out. Check this out. And when you're writing the dialogue for whoever it is, one way to really kind of shore it up and make sure you're good with everything, like it makes sense, is to read the dialogue from the very beginning. Like write a scene, right? Just like editing. Take the same premise as editing. And I'll write the whole fucking scene, bro. I'll fill in. Next thing I get to the end, I'm like, cool. Then I sit back. Then I'm like, all right. And like a lot of things, right, it may take a day. And you're like, all right, I'm going to talk it out loud now. And then you speak it out loud to yourself in your room or whatever, and you speak it. And I'm telling you right now, you will find so many holes and gremlins in your dialogue that way that you'd be like, oh, what the fuck was I talking about? You know what I mean? Because in your head sounds good. But then when you say it, even if it's not you, or you know your actor or actress who's going to say it, you're saying, like in your head, you know what they sound like, but when you start saying it out loud and going through the process, like from the beginning to the end, that's when you will find a lot of holes. And I think a lot of times I look at these movies at times, and I don't think they do that. I don't think that they sit there and see as a rhythm. Understand one thing, you know, dialogue for me is rhythm. It's a dance, you know? You got to be able to, it got to have a shuffle to it. It has to have a hip to it. You know what I'm saying? When people talk, it should just be kind of rocking. It should be moving. It's a dance, man. That's why everyone can get into a good rhythm when they hear good dialogue. Because realistically, you listen to it, it's a rhythm. So when you listen to it, you kind of reciting it back to yourself, and you saying, okay, she says this and he says that. No, I think you should be this. Or no, my baby, like, oh, no, why not? Maybe not. You know what? This be best if I do this. That's where you find those gremlins. You gotta say it out loud. And for me, I do it all the time, you know. Like I said, sometimes I just leave things there because I say, you know, I let the actor kind of figure this one out and see what we can do. Sometimes you just get stuck. You know, you just throw some shit in there. And you tell them to, hey, listen, this is some shit that I wrote in here and whatnot, just to kind of fill it. Let's just work this out. What do you think? And a lot of times, man, let me tell you something. A lot of times, and I'm amazed at this, and I never get used to it. And that's why I'm so proud to have the crew that I have, the actors that I have. I will write some stuff, and I know it may sound okay, but I know they could probably work it out. And when I hear them say it, and I explain to them where is it coming from and why that person is saying it, and this is the whole point of that dialogue, like that sentence, and they get into their head, and they know the ebbs and flows and how they want to do it, because they're saying, I have to say this, not because Barry is telling me to say it, is because I have to say this. And that's people looking at me. They're not looking at Barry. They're not looking at the writer. They're not looking at the producer. Those motherfuckers are looking at me, sitting down in the theater looking at, I'm saying that shit. To them, I said it. No one said it for me. I said it. And when they say it, wow, it's like, wow, did I write that? Damn, that should sound good, because they figured it out. A really good actor can make almost anything sound great. It wouldn't matter what you tell them, what you have to say. A good actor, a good actress can make almost anything sound beautiful. I'm telling you, my guys do it every now and then. I mean, they do it a lot with me. They say it. I'm like, wow, that sounds, damn, did I write that? That sounds pretty good. They may put the little imps and umps and whatever in between to kind of fill a hole. So that a lot of times you may leave shit alone and just wait till your actors say it and then say, okay. So you figure the process that I was talking about before, right? Saying, hey, Tremaine, yeah, thanks, man. Thanks for chiming in, brother. I appreciate that. Hey, Chip, what's up, man? Yeah, no doubt, Tremaine. Thank you for, like I said, thank you for participating and just asking questions. I appreciate that, brother. I mean, I think it's one of those questions that a lot of us do have. You know what I mean? And I think other people can actually learn from this too. I'm always learning. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, I'm not like this genius. I'm not, far from. This is just my opinion on things. I know what I like. You know what you like. And we do our best to try to make it the way we want to, what we feel is best. But sometimes there are things that are just obvious and sometimes egregious. Like, what the fuck? Yeah, but anyway, like I was saying, before I go, dialogue, if once you write a scene, I said, then go through the whole process. Once your actors say it, like after you go through the whole thing and you start filling up the holes and you say, this is better, you go crazy on that shit, right? You fucking go nuts. You're like, then you say, okay. This looks good. It sounds good. I think I got this. Then when you go for a rehearsal and then your actors start saying it, that's the next level, because then you have to see how they're saying it, how they're coming off. And if it sounds a little rocky, that's when you can say, oh, you know what? Let's just switch that. I thought it was going to work out fine, because I said it last night to myself. I read it to myself last night. It sounded pretty good, but now you're saying it. Looks like it's hard on you, or maybe it's not coming off right off of you. Let's do a little adjustments here and there, and then now, all right, let's hit it. Let's see what happens. And that's how the best way to get that dialogue across. That's all it is. And one thing about dialogue too, man, before I want to let all of you go, is this a big deal. Dialogue is your dialogue. Out of everything else, always understand, if you're making a movie, you're writing the movie, you're casting the movie, you're editing the movie, you're spending money on this fucking movie, you're losing sleep on this fucking movie. You write what the fuck you want to write. And if they don't like it, they can suck your dick. They can kiss your ass. Because you know what? This is what you felt. You went through the process of making it the best way you possibly can. You felt comfortable. You went through all of the rewrites and the feeling, the rehearsals with everyone. You went through all of that. You saw it. You felt it. If it's your taste and you feeling it and say, I know this will work, and the only way it's going to work if you say it this way, and you went through all of that with your crew already. You know what I mean? And it's like, okay, cool. Because I'm quite sure people in your crew will tell you, no, that sounds too good, man. Maybe we should try something else. I mean, I know it's yours, but I think it'd be better this way. You went through that whole process, I'm assuming, already, before anyone saw this. So those who say, you know what? I don't know. I don't know. Then you know what? It's not for them. Everyone's not going to like it. Fuck them. It's yours. But in between all that, before all that, that's what I'm saying about making sure the dialogue kind of feel always reactionary, not written down. You know what I mean? Don't make someone's dialogue the way you write. That's the difference. When you're writing the actual scene, the action scene itself, you're going to write it differently than someone's talking. Always make it sound very natural. So you went through that. But really, all in all, that's what it comes out to. You know your audience. You know who you're trying to attract. And if that's what attracts them, then go for it. Then you put it in there. That is it. You know what I mean? You know if it's corny. You should know when it's corny, but sometimes a little corny works. You know what I mean? Sometimes it does. Overly corny is horrible and it's sickening, and we see it a lot. But the little ones, we need those. We need it just to kind of keep you grounded about where you are. You know what I mean? Even the best, put a little corny in there, and that's okay. We need that. It just keeps us all grounded. Let's see. One more thing. Tremaine is asking me. He said, so how is it that bad dialogue ever make it to the big screen? It just seems like they have so much resources. How is it not the best all the time? Because, my friend, that a lot of people who are funding this and giving you the go-ahead are not artists. Artists has the power, just enough power, depending upon who is funding them. And tell you the truth, man, I may get some kickback on this, but I'm just going to be real, man. A lot of Hollywood and stuff is just like old white men or some corny white guy from Harvard who think he's cool because he can recite all of Shakespeare, and that doesn't make it. That doesn't sell tickets. And to them, a lot of them are just corny. Until you have people around you who are grounded, who've been out there, who grew up, now with a silver spoon in their mouth, who grew up, who had to fight for what they got, a lot of times are more grounded on what's cool and what's not, what's funny and what's not. Those people who fund it will look at it and say, no, too urban. You hear that? Racist as shit. Racist as shit. I don't care. Understand, guys. Hey, you say urban, it's racist. I'm sorry. Get it together. You need to be grounded. You need more friends. You need to get out more. And they would say things like, oh, okay, that sounds funny because the person who's funding it thinks it's funny, but really no one else does. So a lot of times that's what happens. Because you may make something so cool and slick, but who's funding you don't get it really. They only get what they get. And you're saying some shit that your crowd, your audience knows, and the others don't know because they haven't come from that world. They haven't been raised that way. Their mother doesn't talk that way. Their brothers never talk that way. Or their friends in school never talk that way or been there before because they're living in a little world. So when your world comes into play and you want them to fund this world that you know so well that you're aiming for, this is what we say. But to them, they may say, well, the people who may look at this and the critics may say this or whatever, they may not know it. So let's change it a little bit. That is when you have issues about creative problems. But when you hear actors leave a show, or you hear a director leave or something like that to get fired, creative differences, that is why creative differences. I think a lot of times those guys are saying, no, you're fucking corny. Stop it. Let me do what I do. You know nothing. Just shut the fuck up. Give me the money. I know my audience that we're trying to get to. You haven't. You haven't grown up that way. You don't know anyone of that nature or that ethnic group ever in your life, or you even been around anyone like that, or where have you been that you know this so much so well? And who were you with? So it's a lot of things come involved, and that's why indie films are always the truest films because they don't have a whole bunch of rich white boys in the back who don't know shit about comedy. They are corny as hell, and they look at us to be cool. I'm sorry, brother, because brothers, we are cool, okay? People of color are cool. It's just the way it is. There's not much I can say. It's just the way it is. They know it too. It's just the way it is. You know what I'm saying? You got some out there. You got some sprinkles out there who really know what they're talking about. Some white boys and everything else and other people, of course. Not everybody. I'm not saying that. I'm talking about the old cats most of the time. You know what I mean? They don't know anything. What do they know? They ain't in 58. A joke from 71 is still cool. I'm like, no, it's not cool anymore. You don't say that anymore. And then what they think is, what they think of people is what they want on screen. And I tell you, this is a big deal. Now check this out. This is, as artists, we have to understand something. Like athletes on a team, we control a lot more than you think. Because remember, man, those people who are funding half the time, those people who are behind these things, showrunners sometimes, depending who they are, but they sometimes they so detached sometimes that they don't get it. And it's up to us to say, if you don't get it and I refuse to do this, we're not going to work. Think about it. If there's actors just stop working, directors just stop coming to work. You know what I'm saying? Writers just stop. That's it. What are those guys in the offices going to do? What are they going to do? They're not artists. They don't have an artist bone in their body. You know what they look at? They look at numbers. They look at stats. Oh, this kind of woman is good. Then we have a lot of people liking this type of woman. Well, we have to put this type of woman in there. Oh, guys like this type of guy with this type of hair and this type of eyes. I see the stats. Oh, we have to do that. They don't have a mind for themselves. And half the time, you know what people are going to do? If you keep flooding the market with one thing, over time, people are going to get used to it. They say, oh, well, that's the only thing we can get, so I might as well watch it. If you don't give them anything else, they wouldn't know what else is out there if you don't give them a chance. Numbers don't really mean much, man, when it comes to that. They're looking at numbers. You and I, as artists who are in the streets, who are working, who are grinding at this thing, who are in the gutter, bringing it up, making flowers, making trees, making something fucking strong and beautiful every time, those motherfuckers never got their fingers dirty at all. And if they did, they forgot. And if they do, if they ever did before, like I said, they forgot. You have to understand, when Hollywood, a lot of times, sometimes they get it right. And those that get it influence those that need to, like, example, like I say, one person that comes to mind for me, I think, gets it. And the people who are listening to him are funding everything. And thank goodness he gets it. It's Kevin Feige, for Marvel. That guy understands storytelling. He understands, what's going on, in society. And if he doesn't, he's taking the opinions that he's learning from the actors themselves about what's need to be said, what shouldn't be said, how to portray somebody, how not to portray somebody. He's really in tune with pop culture. It's a very big deal. You have to be. And I think Kevin Feige combined really good storytelling with pop culture and knowing where everyone's going. Where are we going? That, my friend, makes the dialogue a lot easier when you're in tune with what's happening. And once you're in tune with what's happening, of course, just not in your story and just not in your character development, your backstory, but what your audience is going through today. Like, what is affecting your audience that you're aiming for? And then you kind of throw that in there, or you take something out, you balance it, that when they see it, they get it a whole lot better than anybody else, because that's your genre. So that's why to me, dialogue is very important. We should concentrate on that. But at the same time, if you're making it, be confident, your audience, and write it for them, write it for you. And always, every now and then, make yourself as if you're looking through the glass window and see if you would like to hear that. Get the response from your actors, have them say it, see how it sounds out of their mouths, then make adjustments. Once you put the time into it, it'll be the best you could possibly get. And that's what you can ask for. Once you're happy, that's what it matters, because everyone's not going to like it. They're not. But your audience that you're going for, a lot of times, are going to get those little idiosyncrasies, those little subtle jokes that you put in there, or a subtle, historical, stories or dialogue from somewhere else. Who knows? So that is why, all in all, this whole thing I'm talking about, write what you want to write. Put time into making sure you are confident about what you're going to have your actors say. Go through it with them. Make sure it sounds natural, and always make sure the dialogue always sounds reactionary, unless it's purposely designed to make it as if they are reading something because the scene or the character, is supposed to sound that way, or there's got to be a reason for it. But most of the time, everything should sound reactionary, and don't give anyone dialogue that sounds like you wrote it. That's the key. Put in all the imperfections of speech that we go through every day when we speak to anybody, any of our friends. So that's the key. So that's just me. You know what I mean? So like I said, when you look at mine, I do my best with that. And then season 2's coming, I'll concentrate more on that. I want to give little kind of, Easter eggs out there, little ones every now and then, that my audience or certain people within that realm of that audience, or maybe some people maybe within that world knows in real life what that means, and they'll catch and go, oh, word, you know what I'm saying? So, it's a little things like that. So anyway, that's enough. So, all right, guys, I love you all. Thank you all for hitting me up, talking to me. Jermaine Jenkins, what's up, brother? Thank you for chiming in, asking some questions. I hope it helped. I hope, it's my opinion only. So, as you know, movie making is a journey, and a journey that never ends, and a journey that's exciting as hell. Nothing could replace it, man. And all of you, thank you all, love you all, and I will talk to you guys later. Peace.